Yep.
Okay.
Good
So-
cat. Very good.
I know,
I
thank
was
goodness I
supposed to
did it
remind her.
now, not after you started. So I want to tell you a little bit about some upcoming workshops. We have Ellen Howard, and that one's actually full. That's exploring the versatility of gouache, and unfortunately, some of us missed out on that opportunity. And then next, we will have Kathleen Conover, who's here today doing the demo. And like I said, she will be March 17th through the 19th. Then we have, and that's in a live or in person in San Bruno. And then we have Teresa Kirk or Teresa, I'm not sure. That's called The Beauty of the Mark. That will be a Zoom workshop, April 22nd to the 24th. And there will be a demo on that, I believe is April 6th. I can't read my writing for sure, so I think it's April 6th. We'll double check the web page. And then we have Alexis Levine, who was with us last year, but she's going to present a different workshop. Her demo will be on April 27th. And that will be a Zoom workshop, May 5th through the 7th. And then the last one we have scheduled right now is Kim Johnson, which will be, the title of that one is No Fear, Loose Watercolor. Her demo is August 17th, and the workshop is September 8th through the 10th on Zoom. All of this information is available on the Santa Clara Valley Watercolor Society webpage, and you can double check everything there. So now let me tell you a little bit about Kathleen. First of all, Kathleen, thank you so much for agreeing to this demo and the workshop. I'm really excited about it.
I am too. I love to be back in California and work with the California artists. They're great.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go over Kathleen's bio. Kathleen is a master artist. Kathleen exhibits her work, jurys exhibitions, gives demonstrations, and teaches in-depth workshops. She has been juried into more than 100 exhibitions, receiving national and international recognition for the vision, innovative techniques, and fearless expression that give rise to her unique designs. Painting with openness to her subject matter, she is guided by intense observation and deep personal reflection. The result is a rich symbolic layers of literal and figurative design. Painting from an early age, Kathleen was influenced by teachers and artists in the fertile environment of Southern California's prominent artists, museums, and galleries, as well as international travels. She studied undergraduate fine arts at San Diego State University, finished her Bachelor of Art degree at University of Washington in Seattle, and earned her Master of Arts degree from Northern Michigan University. Continued study with American Master watercolor artists over the decade enriched her depth, understanding, skill, and personal style of painting. Kathleen Conover's current involvement in the growing international watercolor scene includes invitations to exhibit, judge, and demonstrate in China, Turkey, France, Belgium, Thailand, Greece, and San Bruno, California. She has been honored as one of 40 international master watercolorists invited to exhibit at the first watercolor exclusive museum in, oh boy, I don't know how to say this, Qingdao, China?
Qingdao, very good.
Thank you. The birthplace of watercolor. Global travel includes or continues to influence her award-winning paintings and inspires her work toward her lifetime pursuit to be a better painter. On her website, you can view some of the over 100 juries exhibitions, and it will tell you about her awards. And she has a lot of letters after her name: AWS, DF, NWS, ISEA, NF, WHS, TWSA-MA. That's pretty impressive.
Alphabet soup, and we leave it at that.
And Kathleen has, I asked her if she preferred questions coming through the chat or if people could just ask. And she thinks it's nicer if people go ahead and ask. If you think it's something that's, it's not an appropriate time, you can go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll check with her when we can. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Kathleen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Vicki. You have a wonderful organization with a couple of terrific volunteers, I can attest. They have held my hand for the last couple of days while we have struggled with my lack of internet. I'm in Florida. I'm on a barrier island called Pine Island, and the very north end, which has now been hit 3 times with hurricanes in the last couple of years. And they are still struggling with getting their infrastructure up and bridges and roads and all that good stuff. But I have very generous neighbors who run their business out of their home, and they have allowed me to come into their storage work areas. So I am surrounded by a good work environment. They have set up lights and a table for me, and I think we are good to go. It's as good as it gets. So good organization, wonderful volunteers. Thank you very much, Vicki and Susan, for a lot of hand holding. Great.
Our pleasure.
It has been kind of fun, especially when we're successful in the end. And we are. We have a clear image. We're thrilled. I think I have all of my materials here. I have lots to show you and tell you. So I think we'll get started. The first thing that I am going to do, so I've got my little stack in order over here. So you will see me leave often. So I want to talk about the workshop a little bit. I consider myself an experimental workshop teacher, and really enjoy what watercolor can do. It has a spirit of its own, and I realized many, many years ago, as I was very controlling of my watercolor, that's not why I chose watercolor. My degrees are in art, and I've certainly been in jewelry making and sculpture, and I have a minor in printmaking, and my first major was in textile arts, and so it's varied. But boy, when I was given the chance to do what I loved or what gravitated to, it was watercolor. And it's not something that is necessarily taught or respected a whole lot in academia, I'm sorry to say, still. It's a battle we've fought for many years. But so watercolor and painting with the spirit of watercolor is a wonderful thing, and I try very hard not to kill that. And yet I also have a series of work. This is one of the pieces in the back here, which might not be in focus, in my industrial series, industrial evolution series, that's also very tight, very controlled, but it starts very loose again. So all of my pieces start very loose. So day one of the workshop, my workshop's called Chaos to Order, and I invite anybody else to join. I understand we have a few spots left. The first day is the chaos, and chaos in my mind is important in some paintings, certainly my work. It's what I call the interesting part. It has a bit of a magic to it. It has its own voice. It's color, it's texture, it's rhythm, it's motion. All of my work seems to have a lot of motion to it. And that, too much of it is definitely chaotic. But for me, I find that the interest, that if we don't have enough to build on, I don't feel that there's enough interest in the piece when we finish. So let me show you. Day one, we start in a 3-day workshop. We will only do 8 starts, and they are this quarter sheet size. This is the kind of work that we will be seeing or coming up with. Very textural. These are transparent watercolor. Very textural, very organic. Ooh, there's a colorful one. Very organic in the results of these pieces. So we will work the first half of the day on the gesso juice, actually. Second half of the day, then we get into the transparent watercolor. Gesso juice, you will see me use a little later in this demo, and I'll tell you all about it. But these are more the kind of results I get from gesso juice. This is a monoprint. Gesso juice is definitely a layer of plastic that's on the paper. This one has plastic on the entire surface. This is the gesso juice that's been printed on, if I remember right, it was corrugated cardboard, peeled, a layer peeled off so you get the stripes. Printed. Here's another printing, a very controlled. It can be controlled, it can be random, it can be just partial, it can be all over. Here's another, the one that's, even though it's printed all over, the some of them are ghosted out, some of them are stronger than other pieces. Calligraphy, again, this is a piece that is completely covered with gesso juice and then written into. I use a lot of calligraphy in my work, even though most of it is more like this, which I refer to as just calligraphic marks. It's not writing like this one is. So these are the kinds of pieces that we come out with on day one. Your color choices, your patterns, your mark making. I believe in both intuitive as well as planning in our work. I think both are important. I don't think we can ignore either one. Too much control without abandon is not good, and too much abandonment without any kind of control, I don't believe is very good either. Day 2 of the workshop, we get into the design and composition. And that's what turns these into some finished works. Get my next piece. When I finish my pieces, I might finish them completely non-objective. I love non-objective. I think it is an important way to force ourselves, so to speak, to just really work with design and composition. We don't have imagery that we can copy and say, oh yeah, I've got it now. I've got it like the image. This instead is, we are just working with the design principles and elements, which are so important. So some of my pieces are totally non-objective. Some of my pieces have reference to nature or to landscapes, this being quite stylized. I love the stylization. For me, I feel that there's soft edges in here and there's a little bit of mystery, but there's also plenty of hard edges in here with the movement of the water around the rocks on the shoreline. And sometimes I definitely am working with imagery. All 3 of these are with very free, I guess I would say very wild, very intuitive beginnings. I have no intention when I start my paintings. You can. Certainly people will have something in mind. They are working with just water or just mountains or skies or geometrics. And you can definitely start your pieces with that in mind. But I think for me, to retain the motion and movement in my pieces, I like to start them with total abandon, nothing in mind, and take it from there and kind of, in a way, force them into what I want them to be or what I see in them. So let me, first of all, I'm adjusting my chair. Chair I had here, it was very low, and I found a styrofoam box that I was sitting on for a while, but I found a stool, which is much better so that I don't squeak every time I move. I'm going to show you what my thought process is often when I have some of these very organic pieces. This one again is totally transparent watercolor. I work with them a couple of different ways. Sometimes I put my tracing paper over it and I just start tracing off some of the things that I have. This helps eliminate some of this hard contrast that I see this way. It just starts to mute it all a bit, and yet I can see what's underneath. So this piece, as I look at them all which way, sideways, upside down. This one definitely had an upper and a lower to me. It had an upside, and I came to this. I settled on this idea for myself, and I don't know if you can see this. So up here I have, and I say dark trees. So off of this dark edge, I will continue with dark trees up there. Off of this very light edge, I will increase that element, and I'm going to do white birch trees off of this. Keeping in mind my large area for my composition and some detail. The composition is always so important, but that's one way that I am thinking on paper, I guess it is. It doesn't mean I'm going to finish it that way, and it doesn't have all the details in there. Another way that I often am working with them is just with my chalk. I do a lot of thinking with chalk. So I think you can see the organic paint on underneath, and all of these white marks are chalk, just drawing in it with chalk, because the chalk for me will just wipe away with no residue. So I have a note for myself that says this distance versus up close waterfall in and behind rocks. And I noted not resolved. Use my tissue paper again. To really resolve it, I will probably have to do tissue paper, or at minimum, give myself a little value study that reminds myself, where is my center of interest? Where is my darkest darks against my lightest lights? Am I moving the eye around the piece? All of those good things that we have to consider when we are developing our pieces. And again, design and composition comes day 2. By day 3, you need to be developing your pieces. So this one, I wrote my note here, a writhing waterfall at the bottom with small landscape in the back. I haven't resolved that either, but when I go through these, I'll just make little notes for myself. And as it sits for a couple of years, I may completely change my mind and say, oh no, it'd be much more fun to do something else. Here's one that I did some little chalk thinking. We have, it looked figural to me. So I have one layer of some dark paint in here that I'm starting to negatively paint around figure. Here's a figure holding the jug on her head. Here's a sombrero. This guy's looking down. He's got his arm, the cloth over his arm. There's another up close figure. So a lot of resolving to do, but it was figural in suggestion to me. And I thought, well, that'll be fun. I haven't done that before. Let's see if I can do that one. Here's another piece. I have said a box within a box, like a flower paint, one of my flower paintings. And it's something that I do quite a bit. A single poppy or a couple of poppies, and that will be part of my demo today. So here again, all of this movement, I don't know if you can see the texture in there. Yes, I think you can. There's a monoprint texture over the entire surface of this piece. So when I put paint on in a very fluid manner, I also turn it on its side so that gravity is working with me, and it's pulling the paint, and it's running in these little rivulets. But when I have gesso juice all over the surface of the painting, it's very easy, almost too easy, to lift the paint off. Sometimes I will be lifting way too much paint too quickly. So that's my thought process. That's how I go from just this randomness, chaos, to a little order. So first of all, I'm going to do a gesso juice start for you. So this is a messy process. Let's see. Gesso juice is my recipe that I have come up with over the years. And it is a half gesso, a quarter matte medium, and a quarter water. I'll repeat it. Half gesso, white gesso, preferably pourable to begin with. A quarter matte medium. You can also use gloss, but matte is what works best for me. And a quarter water. The water, if you try this recipe, the water put in last, because you can get it too watery. And of course, if you want to just keep it very thick, you can also. But this works well for me. I don't build up an actual texture very much anyway on my pieces, but if you have it thicker, you can get quite a bit of texture on your piece. So I take an old watercolor painting. So I encourage anybody who's watching, even if you're not thinking about doing the workshop, this is something all of us can do. I call it giving myself a new start. And sometimes I brag that I have no bad watercolors in my studio. It's not because I don't still paint bad watercolors. It's because I gesso juice them. So it's hard for me actually to find pieces that I can demo on this. So I'm going to check and see if I might be so fortunate as to have some gloves with me. No, I do not. Okay, well, that's how it goes. When I have something this light, I will often get into the crème d'arche and just add some more. I've already got pinks and yellows. Let me go with some blue in here. Yes, it's more chaos. I love it. That is not marking. Wonder what that is. Now, as
what are the paints that you use? The crayons that you're using?
Caran d'Ache. Boy, you can almost see it. CARAND''ARCHE. That's French for water crayon. So I think all of our companies anymore, our pigment companies, make pigment sticks, and they're wonderful. They're pretty costly, but Caran d'Ache is one of the originals and still works really well. So if you've ever used the pigment sticks, you know that if you really scrub them with water, they'll pretty much dissolve. That's the idea of them. So I'm going to do some scrubbing because I want more color in this piece, but I'm not going to scrub it all out. My intent often when I have old watercolors is to mix all of the paints together so that I end up with some neutral. And most of the full sheet big paintings will have enough different colors in there that they will have, they will mix together and be very neutralized. This isn't going to be, this is going to be still rather pastel, but that's okay. Doesn't matter at this stage. So this is my gesso juice, and there's the consistency you can kind of see that I like whipping cream maybe. And I don't like having to clean acrylics out of brushes. So I use my customized credit cards. There's my lens.
We see it.
Yeah, the old credit cards or room keys that I conveniently forget to return. Cut them diagonally and get 2 scrapers out of it. And then I can just move this around. So something is happening here. This board back here has, it's like corrugated, and I can see it's going to start coming through, which, you know, in the spirit of experimental, you just let it happen. Might be the best thing that ever happened to this little piece of paper.
Kathleen, this is Susan. When you've pre-mixed your gesso juice and you
Yes.
put it in your squirt bottle, how long do you think it lasts in there?
Just about forever, as far as I've been able to tell.
Okay.
So this has, it's been, I'm just down to the bottom. I'll bet I mixed that stuff up 5 years ago, and it sits in Florida, not in air conditioning, just cooking.
Wow.
So, and I just opened it up and it's just fine. And it doesn't smell, it doesn't mold. It just seems to be okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Those are good questions. So I am not getting much color coming into this because the original painting was quite pastel. But I think you can imagine that if you have a lot of pigment, a lot of watercolor on your old painting, that you're going to start to get colors that come up. But the other thing that I like to do is, or is very important to me, is that I will scrape down through. And it's those marks that I think are pretty cool. And I'll work with those. If you don't like what you have, you just cover it over. So you can sit here and play with this stuff a long time. And again, if it's thicker, it'll be more three-dimensional. So I am going to put a few marks through here, varying their thickness, thinness, and then one of these wallboard spreaders has this great okay, that's good. I will let this dry. I'm real smart. I would come back. Ooh, just got my fingers in it. And be able to pick up some of this so it doesn't adhere itself to the board beneath, which it will try to do. So you notice I am not washing this stuff out of a brush. I do not like to have to do that. So acrylics, remember that acrylics are not good for our environment, especially our water. They are a pollutant. So if you dry it, it becomes inert. If I were to just put that wet gesso in the water, as long as it's wet, then it becomes, then it's not good for our environment, our water. It continues to pollute. So it's a good thing to wipe off your tools as much as you possibly can, just in a dry format. And I usually have newspaper off to my side when I'm working with this, so I can just wipe these tools off on the newspaper, and that's all I need to do. This does not have to go into the water. Either does this little scraper, you know, that's good enough. And when I wipe the gesso juice off on newspaper, it's amazing how you get some cool papers for collage, which I enjoy doing also. So let me put this one aside. So let me bring this back for a moment. You saw this at the very beginning. Can you relate to what you just saw me do with gesso juice and this piece? These big strokes are marks that came right down to the watercolor that was underneath. So there's the kind of neutralization I talk about that the old watercolors will often give me when I'm scrubbing things up. And a lot of those marks, I love them. I love the fact that they're scraping down into something underneath, and then I will develop the piece according to what I have. So here's a dry one, the one in the oven. This is the kind of thing I end up with often. Is, you know, there's colors that are coming through here. There's a lot of white. There's a lot of movement and motion. But I figure I can go anywhere from here. Just plain paint on it. Don't worry about those things. And here again is the thought process. When I get into larger pieces, especially, so I'm looking at them every which way. Upside down, sideways, vertically. This piece, I'm still on the series I call Wind in My Sails. So there were these big motions in here. I also came through with some washes of paint, some stamping. You see some interesting little stamping just to put more chaos in, because I can't seem to be able to bring that chaos, that interest back into my paintings at the end. I can control these so much that there is nothing exciting left, and I've done it before. So the idea is to leave that motion, the energy in there, and not kill it, not kill the spirit of watercolor. So let's see if you can see my sketch better this way. Again, like the little one I showed you, I will do a lot of my thought process on tracing paper that's laid over the painting, because I can see what's underneath. Right, okay, so I'm keeping with these big movements, the movement of the painting underneath, and I'm developing my sails along with some of those areas. And then the other thing that becomes essential for me are these tiny little value studies. There, I think the shine is off of it. Maybe. I don't
You
know.
can see it.
Okay. These little value studies are the most important part of my painting. This is where I start to really get, in a way, controlled. It's definitely design and composition, but it is taking the chaos and bringing it to some kind of order. So along with a general layout on my tracing paper of what I want to do and my value study, from that, I start to develop my paintings. So that is the process. This is a good time if you have any questions before I get to the next stage.
Nope, it's looking good so
Uh,
far.
I have a question. If you don't have any old paintings, do you sometimes make some kind of underpainting and then put the gesso on?
Yes, I have done that. I have truly run out of bad paintings. Um, I've also been known in my classes to say, "Oh, can I trade somebody a bad painting that they're ready to destroy for a new piece of paper?" Because I don't have them because I do that so much. And a lot of my award-winning pieces even have started with that. So Vicki, do you or does Susan have some of the images? Have the images I sent?
I have them.
Vicky's got them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to go ahead and put those up? I think I'll talk about those a little bit.
Sure.
Right
Hold
now.
on.
Okay.
So she'll share screen. So we won't see you, Kathleen, but we'll hear you.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I'd like to see what's up and then I can talk about it.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will trigger some other questions too.
Okay.
I had a question. I just wanted to know, do you work everything in wet or you let dry in between each layering of whatever you're doing?
Yeah, I definitely let things dry. Yeah, in between every layer. So
Okay.
so dry that, I mean, they sit in my drawers. I'm sure nobody else has this happen. They sit in my drawers for years before I will get back to them often.
That's interesting.
Let's start with the second piece.
Okay.
Call this one Relocation Required.
Hey, Vicky, we can see them all, but not large.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're, huh,
Yeah, we're seeing your whole like desktop or whatever.
okay,
You
let
got
me,
Can you just click on the second one? Yeah,
there
that
you
is that any better
go.
or?
Now, is it coming up big for you?
nope.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let me try one more thing.
Yeah.
Is that any better?
Nope.
No.
Huh,
I would stop share, then open the
Yeah.
document you want, and then just share that one.
well, let's see.
The question I have, Kathleen, this is Susan, while we're waiting for Vicky to get that up, is when you put that, the gesso juice on, how in the world do you get a dark color over it? Because every time I try to put dark color over it, it just doesn't want to be dark.
Well, there's what I call it the one stroke rule.
Yeah.
You put one layer down and it has to dry. Sometimes even hitting it with a hair dryer helps set it a little bit.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then, yep, let it dry completely. And then you do another one
Okay. All right.
over the, especially if that gesso juice is thick. Now,
I
over
know. Yeah.
when it's thin and it's been printed, often that's thin enough that it doesn't seem to be a problem. But most of the time with the gesso juice, I figure, yeah, you are applying a layer, let it dry. I figure you put it down. You sometimes get a chance to smooth it or make a second stroke, but by the third stroke, you are lifting it back to white.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you'll show that in the workshop.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so here's one of the pieces. I think you can see that it is started with my gesso juice from an old painting. You can see the marks through it and the strokes through it. And some of it, like the distant telephone pole, and some of the distant shapes, distant fuzzed out birds, a lot of that is in the original movement of the gesso juice around. And then I build them up both dark and I build them up in white. So I'll take it from a middle value or neutral, and I'll make the darks darker, the whites whiter, the darks darker, the whites whiter. And the whites are other layers of gesso juice. So it often takes about 4 applications before it's white. And that's one of the things I like about the gesso juice, because a lot of it is clear matte medium or water. It dries much lighter than when I put it down. I'm very heavy-handed in my decision making, and I'll think, oh, that has to be white. So, you know, I used to just plain put down white gesso or scrub all the color out or whatever. Well, to do the gesso juice, when I put it down, I think, oh, good, there's white. Well, when it dries, it shows transparency and it shows the layers underneath. And I think, oh my goodness, is that better? Oh, glad that didn't go so opaque. So it'll take me 3 or 4 coats to get white, like is what you see in that upper left quadrant with the telephone poles and a couple of those birds flying around. The whitest white is in that area. And that was 3 or 4 layers. Okay, do you think you can just take the little arrow and go to the next one?
Are you seeing them Are
yeah.
you seeing them better now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
For me, I see it full screen.
Okay.
So here's a fun one. I just call it Splash. Again, it was an old painting that was gesso juiced and marked through. Okay, we can go on. So that's why I chose most of these, is because they were ones that started with the gesso juice, or in this case, experimental. It was very loose, very free. This was one of the pieces that started with freezing. Some artists know me as the frozen crystal lady, they'd call me when they came into my gallery. In winter in northern Michigan, I would put them outside and pour my liquid watercolors over them, and it will freeze. So there's textures in there that are crystalline in their appearance. So it's just another interesting texture. It doesn't paint a painting for me. It still comes down to design and composition. This one I call found object, because I found a dead dragonfly that I had taped to the wall. And at some point I thought, I need to do something with that guy. So this was my found object. Okay, we can move to the next one. Again, total non-objective. There's a little bit of everything in here, including collage. And I do enjoy collage, but it doesn't change the design and composition element of it. It's just another medium. Okay, let's go on. And here's this is a full sheet painting out of my Wind in My Sails series. So coming back to the boat that shows those marks and scrapings, and scraping down to the layers underneath and working with those marks, not fighting them totally. Sometimes I have to get rid of them, but mostly if they're important, I'll emphasize a few of them at the end. And if not, by the time I painted the painting, they're minimal and they just add to the movement and motion and hopefully interest underneath. Okay, I think that's the last one.
Yeah, this is the first.
And this is the first one. So I am going to do a poppy for my demo today, just working with the gesso juice and just show you the process. So this is going to get a little tedious. Somebody may fall asleep. Just don't snore too loudly. Okay, thank you for showing those for us. Did they raise any questions in people?
No.
Okey-doke. Okay, So, oops, I'm gonna move this chair up a little bit. This is totally gesso juice underneath, marked through, scraped down to the paper. This was not a painting underneath. This is just gesso juice on clean white paper, but scraped down. And when I scraped to the paper, of course, then when I put paint on top, the paper attaches and hangs onto the paint much more than the gesso juice does. So that's all you're seeing here is the very first wash of color over a gesso juice base. Here is my,
I have a question. Do you make the marks first and then put the layer of paint over it?
yes, the first thing, just clean dry paper for this one.
Right.
Gesso juice over the whole thing, like you saw me do over the old watercolor.
Right.
Then I take my scraper and I scrape down hard enough that it goes down to the paper. That is completely dry. It's just white on white. Then I come through and just flow my paint on, and however it ends up, and it shows in those scrapings much darker, and those will always be there unless I meticulously have to get them out, but I don't. Those are always there, and I will move the paint around now that is sitting on top of this gesso juice. So I just paint. I don't ignore what's there, but I just plain paint on top. So here's my little value study. That'll probably help. This side, you can see it very clearly. Well, the composition is pretty simple. It's a box within a box. Well, the box being the outside and then the box inside here around the poppy. Because I have middle value and I'm going to add darks, I'm choosing to do a white poppy. Now, I have used this before and I've done it that way, but I'm going to turn it over, which is hard for you to see, but that is my composition on this one. I still see this is where my darkest is going to go. This is going to fade out. Maybe I don't do anything there because it's already a middle value. It has interest. And then I had to try this before the demo today because this has sat around for a number of years. So I wet this with my brush. I thought, oh yeah, no problem. That paint's coming up with no problem. Sometimes the watercolors sit so long that they won't come up. So on the gesso juice, that's not a problem. So that white poppy will show up just fine against this medium value. So I will leave as much of these beginning paintings as I can. And that in class, we'll work on that. It's like ideally 80% of your painting is done by nature. And then you only have to add 20% of design and composition. You have to bring your artist's eye, know what to leave, what to get rid of, and yeah, try and let the spirit of the process do the painting. So here is the flower and my chalk, my handy chalk. Again, I have chalked in very briefly the flower, and when it's organic, I don't feel the need to have to do transfer paper or anything that rigorous. But I have my little box in there. Okay, so I have part of this poppy already chalked in. It's just my guidelines. That is a petal, and it comes all the way down to that center core. This petal again with a little curl over edge. This one you can see, I started removing color already. A little bit so, but the chalk, as you can imagine, kind of goes away with moving things around. And that's fine. It's just gets me going in the right direction. Here's the kind of thing, even though this drawing shows this stem coming over here, I've got this big line right there, and I will use that. I will darken that one. It will still be going through the bud and up the top edge. But if that is dark and that stem is darker, it seems to be enough definition that it'll be just fine. So I'll use those marks where I can, and I just ignore them where I don't want them or don't need them. And they're usually pretty quiet. They don't usually give me much grief later. They do. I just have to get in there and quiet them down. I use chalk often, and in class, I'll use chalk. It's a nice way that I can kind of show people on their works what I'm trying to talk about or explain, and it just wipes away. It's great. Make notes to myself, like at the end of a work day, I'll make notes that says, you know, darken or lighten or this area develop or whatever. And I'll just write it right on my painting so that I don't forget it the next day.
Is there a particular kind of chalk that you use, or just
Cheap.
white chalk? All right, thanks. Dollar store.
And that's
Yep.
the best kind.
Yes, it's teacher's chalk. And sadly, I mean, you have to be careful. They started making fancier chalk that has a plastic coating on it. So that, I guess, so that people don't get chalk on their fingers. And it's like, oh, please, just leave the chalk alone. So yes, that's why I say cheap. You just want the old cheap stuff. You don't want fancy chalk. Okay.
Kathleen, it's Susan again. And if at any time you want to take a brief break, just let us know.
Okay, or you let me know if people want a break also.
Well, we usually do one about halfway through, so that would be, you know, maybe in 15 more minutes, but you tell me because you may be in the middle of something.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Remind me in 15 minutes. It'll probably be fine to take a break. So as I had started with this copy, I will continue a little bit. I get myself lost very easily.
What kind of brush are you using? Are you using a scrub brush or not?
No, it isn't. I have a scrub brush here, but usually it's just a soft brush. This stuff, as somebody had said, yeah, usually, you know, that it's very easy to get the stuff off. Not so easy to add layers. So no, it's just a soft bristle brush. I will eliminate as much as I can softly. And then on some of the other pieces that don't want to give up the paint that easily, then I'll use a scrub brush. You know, the Mr. Clean eraser is fantastic if you really need to get the color out. And then, so I will take out all the color I can, and then I will use my gesso juice back in the paintings when I need white, more white.
Hi, Kathleen. This is Candy.
Oh,
I have a from San Jose. I have a question about why you add the matte medium into your gesso juice. What is the function for the matte medium?
two things I have found over the years. One is that it adds that transparency to the gesso juice. Otherwise, gesso, of course, is our most pigmented paint that we have, and it is opaque. So a little matte medium in there allows it to be transparent.
I see.
Gesso also, I think this mix works for me well because gesso it's our foundation for attracting paint. It will hold watercolor. Matte medium does away with the watercolor. It rejects the paint. So the combination of the two seems to work just nicely for me to hold enough paint and yet release enough of it that I can work with it.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking, because I do try to cover that. Why gesso juice? And it has just been something over years and years that has developed that I find I really do like. I don't remember those poppies always have leaves, petals that look like crepe paper. So I try to wiggle the, you know, how much the paint, how much I take off, wiggle it around as if it's like crepe paper. So I can take off a lot of this. As you see, it comes up pretty doggone easily. It's like painting with paint, really. And then I can come in later with more paint. So I squeezed out a few paints here to broaden my color range. So if I take out too much, it's okay. And sometimes I will purposely take out too much so that I have a nice white area to put in a different color.
Kathleen, this is Candy again. Another question. After you finish this painting, do you do do you seal it or you just leave it as is?
I usually am just leaving it as is, but it's a good idea to seal them because, as you can imagine, a drop of water or a wet fingerprint on it would take the paint off. So yeah, it does make sense to seal them.
Good. Thanks.
And I do often seal my large pieces, my competition pieces when I've got a big, large painting, because yeah, too much work in them.
And remember, the gesso juice formula is in the chat if you want to scroll up to the beginning.
Oh, good. Thank you. So, Cheap Joe's catalog, Joe Miller wanted to highlight my mixture, and so we were negotiating, the mixture, getting the recipe right and all that. And when he became ill and then died recently, sad to lose him. And so they do sell a in the catalog of Kathleen Conover's Essential Gesso Juice Kit. And I have been trying to get them to change the matte medium that they use, because they have the Joe Miller brand of matte medium, and it is rather thick. And that's fine if you want texture. But I find for my gesso juice, first of all, I have to dilute the thick matte medium. So I haven't really embraced it totally for my classes, but I really should have that on the list, the materials list, because it is a way of making sure that you have what I want for the class. Because people will come with odd gessos. They have too many choices these days. I wish they'd leave our supplies alone. They'll come with odd things, and so it's hard for you to get the results that we're expecting when you don't have the right materials. So it still would be advantageous to just get one of those kits. I think you save a little bit of money on it. I don't get any money off of it, so it's not like you're paying me more. I just wanted the consistency for my classes so that when we mix our stuff up, we're ready to rock and roll. Just get busy painting and not have to spend so much time getting the right consistency.
What brands do you use, like for gesso and the matte medium?
I'm pretty liberal about a lot of it. The only thing is that I would like the matte medium to be a fluid matte medium, not a thick one. But gesso, I think just about any of them work. Just white, please. White gesso. They make gesso in so many different colors now. Okay, I'm purposely leaving a bunch of area. Okay, why don't we take a break? I think you can see how easily the paint comes off. I might next try and add some paint in so that we address that problem.
Okay. Do you want to take like 10 minutes?
Sure, 10 minutes. I'm gonna go
10.
take
Well, no.
a walk and
Yep.
water.
Okay.
Okay. See you back here in a few.
Okay. I'm going to pause the recording.
Okay. Okay. I am going to get some of my darks in. So as I mentioned before, I work from a middle value. I'm very happy when I have basically a middle value start, and I go lighter and I go darker and I go lighter and I go darker. So I've got some light in, it's establishing my light medium relationship. Now I'm going to put some darks in. And this is the area according to my little upside down value study. You know, remember it was that way, but I'm going to do it this way. So my darkest, I'm going to do negative painting in this area. I did not do as I often suggest by trying before you just go in there and paint it, you know, try your colors, but I am not trying this first. I am just going to go in there with a cool ultramarine blue. This is so warm. Everything about it is so warm. I am going to shake that up a little bit and make my darks at least a cool dark. I'm going to leave the dominance of the piece warm. And that's another one of those design elements and principles things, dominance. So I have a little bit of structure in here with my box, but the dominance is still organic. Dominance will be warm over cool. Dominance will be a middle value over dark or light. So the dominances in our work is very important. Done that, I'm going to go with a small brush. I got here. Oh yes, it's a leaf. That was just water with that second brush. Often when this paint on the gesso juice gets wet, yes, if we take the paint away, it will just go back to white of the gesso juice. But if I leave it there and just move it around, then I don't lose the paint.
Kathleen, this is Susan, and this is where you were saying only try to swipe once and then let it dry.
I'm
Okay.
putting it down and let it do its thing. So this is dark, and I talked about making that darker. I can't. It has to be light against that dark. So I am changing my mind. Have a plan. Don't be afraid to change a plan. Robert E. Wood was one of my heroes that I got to take one of his very last workshops that he gave. I think he died at 91. And that was his quote. Have a plan. Don't be afraid to change a plan. Works for life too. definitely going darker. Now I think I'm going to mix it with a little of the pinks that I have here in a minute. And obviously I am not beholding to the actual color of green leaves and along with the white poppy. That's fine. It's the values, and that's why I work with values. Even if I have my reference materials or take pictures of the poppies, if I am going to paint and use that reference, I will often just copy it in black and white, because I don't want to be influenced by its color, just its value. Just started to go in to do some more darks along here, but I'm liking the modeling that's happening, the way that it's drying. So I'm going to leave it alone. I can always come back and change it. Gonna ignore that stem and just figure I can take it out later. I hope I haven't lost my line here. According to my little value study, that dark goes all the way down. It's an interesting mix of paints happening. The yellows coming up with into the greens and the blues. Into the blues and the pinks. Yeah, does that start to, watching me do this, does it start to make sense when I talk about, just one stroke down?
Yes, definitely. Especially if anybody's done this before where they've painted over like gesso or something like this, or Yupo even.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar to Yupo, if you have worked with Yupo. George James, if you're familiar with him, another wonderful artist that we lost recently. We both teach at Springmate in the East Coast about the same time, and his classroom ended up next to mine a couple of times, and he would come over and he would drift on over to my class and during breaks and things, and he would be asking me all kinds of questions. Why am I using the gesso juice? Why don't I just use Yupo? And all I could come up with in the end, just a second, I've got to think about this. I think I can let that just stay there for a bit. Big strokes, just to even it out. Okay. All I could come up with is I don't like plastic. I like the feel of paper. Yeah, it was a funny thing because it is so similar to Yupo, but also I use this the soft texture of that gesso juice to make these marks, to make these lines, this energy. I think that it's a very psychological thing for me about believing that we are all unified, that everything is connected. And that just does it for me. It's in every one of my works. And then Yupo is just too flat.
Yeah. So somebody asked your paintings, are they considered mixed media because you're using the gesso juice?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely. Or I get specific, I call myself a mixed water media painter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes mixed media can also mean it can mean so many different things. Yeah.
Yes, like collage or assemblage. Yes. So
Yeah.
I refer to myself as a water media painter.
Yeah. I think that's a good description.
It is definitely taking on its own character. Boy. The colors that I have are unusual.
There you are. And it really is fascinating to see how it's coming together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I wish, well, I have this brush, but I chopped it up so it's not even. It's a good scrubber. That's what I had chopped it, because I have to get the darks in over here a little bit. So this is as the biggest brush I have, which is not very big.
Kathleen, I know we asked this question about do you seal your paintings? And you said sometimes yes, sometimes no. If you do seal it, what do you use?
I go for an archival, of course. There's one called Spectre Fix and there's an Ultra Fix, but one of the good brands, Golden, has UV protective. Yeah, so I'll go for all those things. Might as well get it UV protective as well as waterproof and, just all the buzzwords.
Okay, thank you.
When I am looking at my paintings for composing, I'm often covering up an area to see if I need to do something about it. Right now, this is quite distracting to me, but I'm not going to do anything yet because there's still so much that has to be done in the piece. So this amount of dark is good. I like the amount of darkness here. I have a lot that still needs to be painted over here, which I am going to do dark against the lighter background, whereas what I've been doing so far is light against the dark background. I like that a lot. And if you notice, even my box is dark against the light on the outside, and here it is light against darker on the outside. I like switching that up, and that's something that I do just a lot in my work. I also wish I had a pointy brush. See, when I moved over to the friend's storage room, I did a pretty good job bringing everything. I did not think that I did not think to bring a bigger selection of brushes. So I will give it my best try here with a chisel when I would like to have a pointy brush. Now I've kind of lost my chalk marks. I need to, oh. When you take a workshop from me, you will hear me saying all the time, I've lost my chalk. People are always having to give me chalk in class. Okay, found my chalk. I just need to put this back in. That is not how that was. This one, I see, yes, it may have been. So that one comes over there and down to here. Okay, I think I got it. Ooh, there's a second swipe I got by with. Okay, it is coming along. This is still bothering me a bit here. So I will probably have to come in and tone it down just a little bit. Tone it down meaning lessen the contrast, because it's the fact that this is a hard, sharp edge against all the organic, it's very attention getting to begin with. But now I've got quite a bit of dark against light, and that's too distracting. The attention still is going to be up here by the time I finish. Question will be if I can get it done with this small of a brush. Need to order some more of this, which is the Rose Madder Genuine. Boy, I am down to had to steal this out of my plein air kit. These little tubes, because I didn't seem to have any. Just wanting a little bit more pink to that orange. Now I have quite a bit of runny paint here, in which case I will use gravity to pull it like the original wash was put down.
Kathleen, we have somebody asking if you could remind us what the yellow, orange colors are.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know what they were. As I said, this sat in a drawer for many years.
Well, the one you're using right now, what did you just mix? Yeah, let's try that.
Yeah, that I can do. So that was a transparent pyrrole orange,
Yeah,
along with the Rose Madder Genuine.
okay. Thank you.
And then the blue was an ultramarine, which was a little bit bold. So just gives me another little problem to solve of integrating it. But we can do that with our colors. We are the artists. We can do it. Okay. This looks quite pink on my computer, but it is not that pink in on the painting. Ooh, I'm risking losing. Okay, it worked. Okay, I wanted to smooth that out. And there's where I mentioned sometimes just by not wiping the color off my brush, I'm able to move it around a little bit without bringing that back to white. Okay, this is the place that I would stop, normally would stop my paintings, let it rest, come back when it's dry. Let me ask, okay, I'm going to clean up this puddle a bit right there. So let me ask, what time is it? Oh, what do we have left?
It's 3 o'clock. We can always stop if you feel like you can't go further. Someone's asking, do you ever use a hair dryer on it to dry it?
I do in my studio, but very rarely. I don't think about that very often, because usually there's always a good time to just stop
Yeah.
and look at your paintings. But I can go on. This is dry in here, and I can start to develop the center of that.
Okay.
Knowing full well still that there are other colors that I will bring into the white of that flower. But
well, maybe before you go, since we know you won't finish, because you can just show us some of that what you're talking about right there, where you're starting to fill in
Yeah.
a flower and then using the other color. So that would be great.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to probably get that center hit. So a lot of these other colors come right off of the center of those poppies. They're very strong. They often have this purple center, but of course I'm not going to be holding to that. More important is the integration of some of this blue needs to be repeated. So I am going to use the opportunity a couple of places. Actually, this is still a little wet. I'm going to put some of the blue right in here. And then that gives me, they'll kind of give me that third spot. I might even bring it in the stem or in one of these lines down here at the end. When you have a color that stands out like this, especially true for like reds and yellows and things, to put them at 3 places in your painting, different places, helps move the eye around. I've got a large area of blues there, a little bit there, and then if I bring it out a little bit more down here someplace, that's a good distribution of it. I might bring out one of these lines. I might add a little blue to it just to distribute that. Because if I only leave it there and put it in here, it's too isolated. So I need to just move it around a bit. But first thing first, let me get this. No, it isn't the first because that's going to be the darkest dark. Okay, I am going to move some of this pink into the center of the petals. I'm going to take it right out of my tube. I'm really down to the end here. Something I've been doing with my paints lately, I have some tubes that have dried up totally. So I slice them open like in an H, and then peel back the metal part, and I just put them on my palette and use them that way because they're just dried watercolor, and doggone, I don't want to. In fact, some of those colors you can't get anymore. Vermilion, and oh, what was the other one? Manganese.
Manganese, and also the original Quinn Gold.
Yes, yeah. So,
well, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one who does that.
no, that's a smart thing to do. Okay, so just bringing out a little bit. Bringing a little more of that pink in there. The color I probably should be worrying a little bit more about is the orange. So I think I will add a little bit more of the pink in a few spots, and then switch this up and get this orange going. Ooh, it is a bright one. That pyrrole orange. Where do I want it? Yes. It's kind of fun over here. So I've got the blue right against this orange. Those complements, of course, are fun to stick together. Everybody's so quiet. I know it is fun watching other people paint. Let's see what is that doing? That is going over that one. Okay. Do like getting this orange back into the flower because boy, I was losing. It was so isolated in the background. One, 3 stems, 1, 2. It's going up there. This one, that one's coming over here. Okay. This will be another opportunity to bring the orange next to the blue. Go ahead and just pull out that color. And lay the orange in. And that was one of the fun things that gesso juice could do. You can see that very well. A lot of shine on it before things dry completely.
But man, boy, that texture is just wow.
Yeah, it's very dominant. This had a lot of relief to it, a lot of texture to it. If it's disturbing, I can always settle it down some. I can scrub out some of the color so it isn't so dark here. But I usually don't. I've gotten to the point that I really do use the motion and movement in my works. And in fact, if anything, I will pick up 2 or 3 lines in the end and will often emphasize a couple of them. But this is just my stuff. When other people paint or use this technique, oh my gosh, you can keep it much quieter, much gentler. It does not have to be this crazy wild.
Well, I think it makes it more interesting. I think it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. I obviously have grown quite fond of it. So up here again, I will probably take out one of these 2 leaves, probably this one, and put more orange in. So I'll leave some of the pink. In some of my big pieces, if I've gotten desperate about having to get rid of some of the texture, I'll come in with just a flat acrylic, but thin, like I use my gesso juice, so that things show underneath, just not so dramatically. Ooh, see, I don't know if you can see this dot of water that just happened there. Where is it? Right there. Yeah, if I just leave it alone, it will dry and will just not show a watermark at all. If I go and try and blot it, I'm just asking for trouble. Boy, when I look at my computer, there's just so much glare. It's hard to see what's going on. That one is coming from way over here. Ah, yes. When I work on my paintings, if it's whether it's a transparent watercolor or these, if I need whiter white at the end, because sometimes some of the pigments will really stain the gesso juice and I can't get it white, I'll come back in with the gesso juice. I think I explained that before. If it's a watercolor painting, I will often use gouache, just because it seems more compatible with the watercolor. Okay, so these guys got their little pedestals or stamen, I think they're called. It's really nice and dark down right in the center of that. I don't hear anybody snoring yet.
That's because we've muted them.
Oh, good. Smart. Okay. I'm gonna completely dry piece. I see my chalk is this is dry enough. I can rub this, just rub that chalk away. Don't dare rub that, that's still wet. Okay, so still going to come in and increase the volume of some of the little wrinkles in the poppy itself. And the leaves are going to have to get more work on down here, but there's a big wet area still, and the chalk is, I can't take that chalk away yet. So there's a waiting time on some of this. Now it's interesting. I see this kind of a glow almost here of the paint. Could be asking for trouble. Wow, that blue on the computer screen, it looks so vibrant and dark. It doesn't look like that on the painting. Oh my goodness. Okay, I am going to make some of this darker. Okay, I think that is probably all that I can do for now, not until this dries
Yeah.
completely can I go in and develop those leaves, but very much similar to the way I'm developing the flower there.
Yeah.
I do the push-pull on the stems. All three of them will be a little more definite. I might lessen the darkness. Let's see if I can right now. Lessen the darkness of this particular stripe. Yeah, it did. Just going in and taking it out of where it was so dark on the paper itself. So I will have to make this stem a little more definite. This one is probably fine. This one maybe is fine. And then by the time the leaves come in there, probably be okay. I think when this is completely dry, I'm probably going to come in with a little bit, another little wash to blend this and bring it up to this mark.
Yeah. Well, it's looking great.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
Yeah. We're at 3:30, so you know, if you feel like this is a good time to stop.
I think so, because I risk ruining it if I go
Yeah.
in and do other stuff. With any painting, I find there is what I call that fine tuning, that final push pull of a little too dark here, a little too light there, a little, maybe this is too defined. Maybe I have to bring out more in the flowers or the petals. But right now, this has got to set. I can see all kinds of little wet spots. Let me bring another one that was out that was kind of my mark for what I wanted to do. This is obviously the white poppy, but it's turned. So when you saw me turn my value study over, I used this value study on this piece. So when I have a design that I like, I'll use it a couple of times and I'll often just switch it. So there's an idea for people too. So this one that has a dominance of the blue with a little bit of the orange, I wanted this one, the dominance of that, well, it might not be dominance of orange, but the dominance of the warm with a little bit of blue. So there they are, side by side. This was started on a watercolor, totally transparent watercolor. Somebody's knocking, it's not my house. So you can see that there's a much softer paint quality. It doesn't have all of this severe motion and line work, but it's the same composition. Well, basically, it's a box within a box with a flower. And you can see where I go the dark stems into the light stems, the light box against the dark on the outside, dark box against the lighter on the outside. So the things that I use for designing in my compositions are, I repeat them. I've kind of settled on things that I like that I think we all do. And there's the example of one that's completely finished and this one that is almost finished.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Does anybody have any, final questions for Kathleen before she leaves us?
I do. This is Jane Sunshine.
Hey, Jane.
Your artwork is very good, and you definitely have a good muscle memory on what your images look like. So in addition to the sketches of the value drawing that you might have done, do you sometimes also have a photographic image of where the image came from to begin with?
Oh, I definitely will use photographs when I'm painting something specific. And the web is so nice now because you can look up copyright-free images and you can get information on anything you want. I grow the poppies. They are my absolute favorite flower. I have painted them for decades, so I just know them well enough that I don't use a reference at this point.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
yeah.
kind of more fun that way too, because they take on a stylization that's more uniquely mine.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, when you were showing us the boats, I thought, gee, I would need to look at a few images of that too.
I do, but they have gotten, again, I've done enough of those that they've gotten so stylized or simplified
Yeah,
that it's more what the painting needs than it is, am I describing boat? And believe me, boat people will come on and say, well, the mast wouldn't come out of there, and where's its udder? Not udder, it's rudder, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a boat draftsman, but I don't care. It really is more about the energy and the motion that I have in my pieces than the specific.
right. As
Yeah.
it should be, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you're
All right.
getting a lot of compliments. Thank you. I love your colors and textures.
Thank you.
You're doing things I never imagined.
Good.
Uh,
Good.
Thank you for the inspiring demo.
Good.
Yep.
I'm
So we hope
fascinated
some of you
technique.
guys sign up for the workshop.
Yeah.
Yes, sign up.
Join us.
All right. Well, Kathleen, thank you.
Thank you very much. You are a great commentator, instigator, I'll call you, because yes, you reminded me of things, kept me going. That was great. Thank you.
Yep. Vicki and I, we're a good tag team.
Yes,
Thank you.
are. Thank you, both of you again.
Yes, you're welcome. And we'll be in
Thank you,
touch
Kathleen.
before the workshop and get
Yeah.
everything straightened out.
Okay,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
now.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.